Hi, I am Samuel Landete and I listen to Designcast from Dubai.
I am Afreen Sheikh and I listen to Designcast from Mumbai, India.
I'm Henrique Caetano and I listen to Designcast from Portugal.
Hello and welcome to Designcast, a podcast where I interview a wide range of excellent guests in design and STEAM education to get their unique perspectives. My name is Jason Reagan and I use my 20 plus years of experience as a design educator to dig deep into complex issues. This podcast has one simple mission: to create a community of people around the world that are interested in design and STEAM education. Each episode, I chat with guests from all corners of the design world, from classroom teachers to authors and even to educational consultants. We discuss a wide range of topics that we feel are relevant today. I do want to ask you that if you're enjoying this podcast, please leave a review, rate, subscribe, share, or download from your favorite podcasting app. This helps the podcast get discovered by listeners that might not find it otherwise. Also, it helps me to continually define the direction of future guests and episodes. Feel free to drop by my website, www.jasonreagan.ga, to leave me a comment or to sign up to be considered as a future guest on future episodes. Also, don't forget to stop by Anchor and leave me a voice clip that could even end up in an upcoming show. Thanks for listening, so let's get to it. All right. On this episode of Designcast, I had the opportunity to speak with Eric Burton. Eric is the founder and creator of Classwork Zoom, which is a Chrome extension that educators can use that utilizes the revision history of Google Docs and other items in your Google Classroom. It allows the teacher to look at the time spent on an assignment by a student, and it even includes analytics. I've used it, and it is an amazing tool, and it makes your work as a teacher more efficient and effective. Eric has made this product free to review a single student at a time. His website is classworkzoom.com, all one word, and you can search for it as well on the Chrome extension store. I highly recommend checking this out to anyone who uses Google Classroom. Also, please subscribe and rate and share this podcast. If you have any ideas for future episodes or would like to be a guest, please reach out to me through my website, www.jasonreagan.ga, as there is a contact form right there on the website. If you really would like to just leave me a voicemail, I would love to hear from you, and the link for that, being able to leave me a message, is right there in the show notes. Also, you can connect with Eric, and all of his information is there on the show notes, including a book that he says everyone should stop right now and read. So without further ado, sit back, relax, and enjoy this conversation with Eric Burton. Welcome back to another edition of Designcast, and it is my absolute delight and pleasure to have Eric Burton with me. Eric, how are you tonight?
Great, doing great. I'm glad you had me on here.
Thank you so much, Eric. And Eric and I have known each other a while, but Eric, do you mind telling everybody a little bit about yourself and kind of what led you up to this point?
Let me see. I was a programmer back at the University of Florida for maybe 14 years, data analyst for the most part. And then I came to Korea and started teaching. I was teaching in public schools and then in a high school for 6 years. So 10 years total in Korea. And as a teacher, well, I still thought in a similar way. I still looked at data in a similar way. I feel like I kind of approached some things from that perspective more than other English teachers would.
And so what do you mean by you approach things differently than other English teachers would?
I looked at, for example, went to my first Google Summit here in Korea, and I learned about all sorts of tools that people could use with Chrome, Google Chrome extensions. And so I found basically I was thinking about new extensions, new things that I could do when I saw data, and I wanted to. It's actually I didn't think about doing them at all myself. I said, man, I want this. There must be something like this out there. And usually when I felt that way, then I could find it. I looked at the revision history of Google Docs and I said, man, this is really good, but there's no way I can dig through all of this, in any kind of reasonable time. If everybody's got an assignment, I can't dig it out in time for everybody to make it worth it. So once in a while I would dig into it when it looked like there was something to look for. But I thought there must be something that kind of mines that data for you. And I looked for about a year and I couldn't find anything. So I started kind of drawing things up and looking for somebody to help me do that, to get it out.
You're right. Every time I think about there's something that should be out there, I usually can find it.
Yeah.
Somebody's usually figured it out before me.
Yeah,
And
totally.
so I guess with you having kind of a programming background, though,
hmm
I think probably you were able to articulate what it is you wanted a bit more, or what do you think?
Exactly. Yes, that's true. Because a lot of times people come up with an idea and they go to a programmer and then they get the yeses and the nos and like this is possible and that's but not possible. And well, first off, when I was approaching someone about this, then I was able to draw it up and say, because I know generally how things work, even though I was a mainframe programmer, and that doesn't help me much with, as a teacher, I didn't have time to pick up, JavaScript and everything. A lot of the modern languages, which is what my program's written in, is JavaScript. We haven't really introduced the program yet. But anyway, I was able to draw it up in a way that I knew things worked in general. Then like I had a guy who said, yeah, that looks like an amazing project. Let's work on that. I found someone on upwork.com. He has a team and we started working together. I've gone through a series of programmers over the last maybe 3 years. We will have one for a while, but then sometimes they move on. It's contractors that work under the main guy, but the same project manager the whole time and the same owner of the company the whole time. And sometimes in there, I'll have people who say, yeah, that can't be done. And then sometimes, because of my understanding of how things work, then I can say, well, but what about this? What about that? And find ways through that somebody who doesn't have a background like mine would have just taken a no.
Right. So we've been talking around it. So
Sure.
tell us a little bit about your extension, because it's an extension, right?
Right. So it's Classwork Zoom, which I assure you I named long before I ever heard of Zoom, the video conferencing company that has since taken over the world. Well, I went to ISTE, International Society for Technology and Education conference in 2019. Was my big debut, and I had a booth there, and it was a really amazing experience. And I had lots and lots of people come and ask me what was going on, like because I had a big old TV screen in my booth showing the extension. And then I had two people who said, "Oh, Zoom, this is great, I love it." That has multiplied quite a lot since then. But at the same time, there's a lot of people that know exactly what it is. So it's a Chrome extension that when you install, basically it just takes your permissions that you give it and can explore and visualize the revision history of Google Docs, Sheets, Slides, Drawings, and now Sites that are associated with your Google Classroom assignments.
It is awesome. I have used it.
Sweet.
And thank you for generously letting folks use that free
Sure.
of charge during that
Yeah.
time. And
Uh-huh.
I will tell you that even at my own school, as I introduce it to people, people sometimes don't know what they don't know. And I think
Right.
sometimes they don't know what
Exactly.
they're missing.
True.
And once you have that visualization,
Mhm.
it's hard to not have it anymore,
It sure
right?
is. Yeah. I mean, as a teacher, it was such a relief to have it. So yeah, like it shows basically on a timeline when a student started working, when they stopped working in chunks of 5 minutes or more, and when it shows possible pasting. So if characters appear quickly, then like if 10 characters appear quickly, then maybe there's a slow connection. The student was typing fast. If 20 characters or more, so depending on how many characters seem to appear very quickly in the revision history, then its likelihood of being pasting is increased, but it's marked so that you can just take a look and say, this looks like something I should investigate, or doesn't. And it shows when students are formatting, if you select that option there. If you're not interested in that, you can turn it off. And it shows comments right on the timeline. So basically you don't see the words until you hover over the visual indicator of a comment, and then you can see a preview right in the timeline of a comment. For pasting, you can see a preview right in the timeline of pasting. So without even opening the documents, then for a whole class at a time, then you can view all of this for everyone. It just saves so much time. Basically, it's impossible to do that for every student, to look at all that for every student one by one without it. And it's just crazy easy with it. So
I think, Eric, you're a bit of a prophet because I think you thought about this well before your time. And what I mean by that is that I think things like this were probably on people's thoughts, especially people who teach older students,
right.
Also, you and I work in a very high octane academic
Yep.
setting
Yep.
where our students are
A lot of high pressure.
a lot of high pressure, a lot of pressure to perform for their parents, for their family, what have you. And I think it's really great because I found even using it for my middle school classes,
Yeah.
it showed me how long students were spending on it, when they were spending time on it, all those
Yeah.
kinds of things. And so it gave me tremendous insight into what to expect and also the work habits of my students,
Seriously.
And so
Yeah.
thinking about their time management skills and thinking about the kinds of things that they will use their time for,
Right.
and then and how they crunch at the end just like adults do.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So you can
Yeah.
see when it's happening. And the cool thing is, it's like you can see if you do something. For example, I'll tell you a story. I had a week. I dedicated the whole week one year to an essay, to a first draft. I said, "Hey, everybody, this is like this. Every one of my classes, you come in, you'll be working on it. You have questions, I'll be here at the back, get working." And I saw kids, on their computers. I saw they had the right things on their screen when I was looking. They were talking to each other. Sometimes I thought, they seem a little chatty, but it seemed like maybe they're plausibly focused on that. And people were coming back to my desk every so often. And I didn't check. I didn't check the extension. It was fully developed at that time, and I didn't check it because I was like, this is going pretty well. Then, like when I was grading the essay, as like just as I would normally do, I pulled it up while I was looking at the work, and I saw that students had done like 15 seconds of work in a whole week. Some of them had done 5 minutes. I think maybe there was somebody who had done 15 minutes. I mean, I just couldn't believe what I was seeing. It was nothing like what I believed had been happening, and I was shocked. It wasn't just one class. It's everybody said, "Yeah, man, Mr. Burton's giving us, some time, and we, it's our time, and we can do what we want, not what Mr. Burton wants, what we want." And that's a bit of an issue. As a teacher, ideally the students are going to want to do it because you've designed something engaging. So I had a problem and I felt shocked. And after that was over, I felt betrayed. And I was like, oh man, what am I going to do with this? And I waited until, the peak of this emotion was past. And I had a very clear talk with them. I said to each of my classes, "Hey, everybody, I know what happened. And here's very important what I didn't do. Hey, everybody, look at this cool tool. Look at you on the timeline." I didn't do that. I was like, because everybody knows the revision histories out there. They know too, it's also very difficult to dig into. And so they just think, I'll get away with it. Maybe somebody else won't, but I will. But I just said, "Hey, everybody, I know." And that's all they needed to know. I know what happened and it can't happen again. And here's the deal. It really, because when I looked at the end of that week, 10 p.m., like between, 8 and 10 p.m. when it was due, then there was a massive amount of work done. It was just like, the timeline was just packed. It was crazy. I said, if it really takes you 2 hours to write an essay, I never need to give you more than 2 hours. Like we can just like essay now and I can focus on other things. There's so many things that we could have done this week, but I didn't do them because I thought you you were going to be spending time working and refining and this. And so if it really does take that, this is not a punishment or anything. I wasn't even angry. I was at a good place. I was like, we can change things. If this is reality, I can adjust to reality. And I felt pretty good about that talk. I think it went well. And the final draft of that essay was pretty good. It was more like what I expected in terms of their distribution of effort time wise. I remember I was looking for, because sometimes I'll take a class, display fake names and show a timeline of real works, sometimes as an example so I can show people how it works. And I was looking for an example from the same class for the final essay of that class. And I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I hadn't looked at it and focused on it. And kids were spending 7 hours, 15 hours instead of seconds. I'm talking hours now. And it was a good topic. And it was I felt like it was something the kids were enjoying because they were able to personalize it. So it's how much it was due to my talk, how much it was due to the topic and whatever, but something massive changed for those same students. The cool thing is that when you do something, you can see if it increases engagement. You can't fake engagement on this
Hmm.
because it's, when the work is being done at the right time by the right people, then it's there. You can see it, like especially when it's in a whole group, then you can say, okay, I did something right here. But if nothing changes, then you can say, well, I need to go back to the drawing board. What else can I do? So it's a feedback loop of engagement. You can see what's working. It's if somebody used it as a cat and mouse thing, like, aha, you didn't do something, or aha, you did do this thing you shouldn't have done. If that's, where you're coming from, then, well, it's not going to get you very far. But if you use it as a way to better yourself, better your teaching, better the engagement of your class, then that's really cool that you can see this result. They don't have to tell you, you can just see it.
It sounds like that, again, it's not meant to be a punitive
Right.
situation. It's just
Yeah.
another data point, right? It's just
Exactly.
another opportunity to have some analytics for it's just like a website, right? You're
Yeah.
you're tracking how many viewers you have, you're tracking how
Sure.
long they stay on a
Mhm.
page.
Yeah.
Now, Eric, let me ask you, I can't remember when I've used this in the
Mhm.
past. Do I have to be the owner of the document in order for it to show up, or can it be any document that the students have in Google Classroom?
Well, basically, you technically, yes, you do have to be the owner, but the way, if you're an owner and it's not attached to an assignment, then it won't make any difference. So it's like you have to be the owner in the, which happens when a student attaches something to an assignment. If you assigned it to them, like, make a copy for every student, or if they attach it and then they take that document as the owner and then remove your access in some way, which I think is possible, then you wouldn't be able to see into it. The revision history would be unavailable. But as a teacher, whenever you go into something, that's attached and the students haven't done that with, then you can see, as long as you can see the revision history, then so can the extension.
So, for example, if students have submitted the work to you and it's still sitting there and you haven't returned it to them, so to speak,
Yeah.
as long as you're able to view that revision history, it can
Uh,
analyze the document.
Yeah, actually, sorry, I misspoke. You don't actually
Okay.
have to be the owner.
Okay.
You just have to be able to see the revision history. Sorry.
Right. No,
So it's
that's
like
fine. No,
when
that's
they
totally fine.
submit, it does change ownership to you, but
Mm.
when it's attached to the assignment, or then you have access to the revision history.
Mhm.
Yeah, just like you would if you were doing it directly. It just automates it for you.
It's fantastic. I can't sing your praises
Oh,
enough.
thanks,
I
thanks.
really think it's great.
Yeah.
And I assume, are the teachers at your school using it, or?
Sure, yeah, yeah. It's free for everybody at my school. I just, like, wrote them in. They were free forever. But not everybody used it. Not everybody used it in any school. But I guess I took a while actually showing it to. I had a few diehard users, like, early on from the beginning, but I didn't really show it to a lot of people at my school. But I last year, when everything started going online, then I showed it to some teachers and, like, oh my God, this is cool, and so it started spreading some. But it's like there are people who get it, there are people who value it, people understand it, and other people who don't, and that's fine.
Probably those folks who don't get it wouldn't be looking at revision history anyway, and
That's
so
true.
they
That's true.
would
Yeah.
they're just looking for that final thing. They don't understand the value in
Right.
that level of analytics, and that's
Yeah.
okay. Like you
Sure.
said, I mean, it's to each person how far they wanna dig down and drill
Yeah.
down to see that. So,
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, I was introduced to it a few years ago at one of the Google Apps events
Oh,
that
yeah,
we
yeah.
had. Yeah,
That's
and
right.
so you've shared that a couple times there, and I know that
Mhm.
everybody has been super stoked every
Yeah.
time you've shown it to them, and
Yeah.
it's gone through multiple revisions and multiple updates, which
Yeah.
has just made it more and more. Tell me a little bit more about this. You said that it works with Google Sites now.
Right. Yeah. So basically, when I first became aware of sites, I didn't pay too much attention to the first version of it, but then the later version, we've been using it some in my job this year, and I noticed that it had a revision history. I don't think it had that from the beginning, but basically, if it's got a revision history, then it can be shown in the timeline because we're just mining revision histories. That's all we're doing, and so yeah, it's now included as of last week. So if you're like in my school, we have students making portfolios that they update during the year every year. So by the time they graduate, then they've got this great portfolio of their best work. Then now we can see when students have been working on how much work they put into it, because on the timeline it not only shows you the individual blocks of work, but it also gives you lots of summary information, and it's just nice to see. I mean, a student has a lot to be proud of anyway, and we have a lot to be proud of for our students. But it's kind of cool to see how much people have put into it so that we could say, yeah, our students have spent on average this much time. Actually, that's sort of a new feature as well, is that you can download summary reports so that you can say, here's a spreadsheet of how much time students spent on a particular assignment. Then you can like average the total right there in the spreadsheet.
That's a very powerful piece of information
Yeah.
to be able to have that there. And, the numbers don't lie.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true.
It
That's
it
true.
makes those tough conversations a little less tough, I guess.
Yeah, everything
Um,
requires interpretation no matter what, but it's like, yeah, as long as you know because the teacher knows their assignments, they know what the numbers represent.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah, absolutely. It's a very powerful tool. And I do appreciate you sharing that with us. And I've used it on multiple occasions and I do find so much value in it. So,
yeah,
thank you for continuing to work hard to put that
sure.
together. And hopefully, anyone from Google who might be listening and wants to purchase it, I'm sure you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, you never can tell. Yeah,
You never know, right?
sure. Yeah,
Yeah, I'm waiting for Spotify to pick up my podcast. So,
yeah. There you go.
here we go. We can both wish for big things.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
This podcast is a proud member of the Teach Better Podcast Network. Better today, better tomorrow, and the podcast to get you there. You can find out more at teachbetter.com/podcast. Now let's get back to the episode.
Eric, let me ask you a couple of just sort of different questions.
Sure.
The extension, I'm
Sure,
going to
yeah.
make sure that that's included in
Mhm.
the show notes. And I know that people will totally dig that. Anyone who's into data and analytics would totally love that. Just shifting gears a little bit.
Mhm.
I mentioned earlier that, we've spent some time with Google Apps, summits, and things like that. I've been on at least one or two of these Thirsty Thursday
Oh, that's right.
PDs,
Yeah.
the live streams. And
Yeah.
you're one of the moderators for that. Can you
Mhm.
tell folks what that is and what it's about?
Well, yeah, it's a group of googly folks who mostly are in Bangkok, but really kind of all around. We sort of pick up like we might have a guest on, and then they'll moderate the next week or sometime soon. And we just pick topics, and we have just a wide range of expertise and personalities, and we all just a great group that we all get along really well, and we just kind of explore topics and try to keep it to an hour because because some people like to go to bed. Yeah, I'll stay up all night. It's like starts at 10 p.m. my time, but it's 8 o'clock in Bangkok. So yeah, it's really fun. I remember the first time I did it. So Sethi de Klerk, I'd met him at my first Google
Yep.
Summit where I presented Classwork Zoom, and he's just a great guy, and he's very enthusiastic. And so I wonder, I'm not really sure who started because I think there had been an earlier phase of Thirsty Thursday before
Mhm.
I got there, and they were just starting again. But I wouldn't be surprised if he started it because he just
He
got
prob-
this. He's like,
yeah.
we should do this, he does that. Well, so I didn't know anything about it, and
Yeah.
he just, hey, Eric, just get on this thing, just get on
Yeah.
this. Like here,
That's
click
what he
this.
did to me too.
Yeah, yeah, click this, and then all of a sudden I was on this live
Yes.
streaming show.
Yes.
Oh yeah. And so yeah, but it's just a really great bunch and we like each other. It's the kind of thing where, a lot of times people who do well in interview kind of shows like that's why the host will have their buddy, Ed McMahon to the Johnny Carson. They
Mhm,
like each
mhm.
other, they just enjoy each other's company and
There's
appreciate each other.
synergy.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's like if then you can feel that too. And I think that's
Mhm.
how some people get started, coming in after having, been
Yeah.
viewers and commenters for a while.
Working in a live stream situation is very different than
Mm,
recording a podcast
yeah.
or even doing a class,
Mhm.
with students. I mean, especially when you've got to balance the time between 6 or 8 people and you want to try to answer questions and you
Yeah.
want to do all kinds of things. And so, I'll make sure to include the home channel, I guess
Right.
you'd call it, in the show notes because it's really fun. And
Mhm.
you're right, it is late. It's 10
Yeah.
o'clock here for
Yeah,
me
that's
too.
right.
And I'm
Uh-huh.
an old man, so it's quite
Yeah.
late for me. It is fun. And you're right. You take a topic each week and you kind of, get folks who are either working with that or experts in that or just want to know more about it there to ask questions and things like that. So I would say that it's been a lot of fun the times I've been there. And so I appreciate you guys doing that. And maybe
Yeah.
we can get a little spinoff going on here and
Sure.
in the rock,
Yeah.
and see if maybe we can do something this far north, but you never know. Yeah, it's cool. It's very cool. And
Yeah.
so tell me just a few more things here,
Mhm.
Eric. And what's one ed tech tool that you cannot live without?
I was thinking about Loom. Loom is really so useful. It's so basic, but it's just like so handy. There's a million screencasters out there, screencast programs. People have recommend different ones all the time, but I guess it's just the first one I got started with, and I've never had the need to jump. It's like having a handy icon on the extension bar and just start recording. It helps me communicate with people all the time.
I would second that on Loom. I really like it. I think it's a great product. It's free forever for
Teachers.
educators.
Yes, sir.
That doesn't hurt the
Yep.
situations.
Yep. That's true.
So what book would you recommend everyone stop what they're doing and read right now?
Wow. There's a book called Algorithms to Live By. It's really amazing. It's been a while since I read it, but I was really inspired by it, that it sort of validates like kind of a gut sense that we have of a lot of things.
Ah,
I can't use that to justify my gut in all circumstances, but it helped me out. It helped me out with some estimations actually, for some things that I was trying to figure out. But it's helps you with decision making in real life situations. It's really good, like for programming, yes, but also for management, for any kind of like in business, any kind of decisions, situations where you're making a lot of decisions. Then it can help you see how to make decisions better. And it's also a quick read. It's got lots of great anecdotal evidence and then evidential evidence to back it up.
sure.
But it's really, very engaging and influenced me in some ways.
That's awesome. I'll have to add that to my growing list of
Yeah. Yeah.
bucket list books. I
Right.
think
Yeah.
that's what I'll call it. So
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
sounds awesome. And so, Eric, if people want to get in touch with you and find out more about your work, how can they do that?
There's my site. There's a contact feedback form on my site, which goes to my email. My business email is eric@classworkzoom.com. So if anybody wants to ask me about it, any questions, I'm always happy to answer.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's been really good actually, because I've gotten some good ideas from people who are like, what about this?
More heads are better than one when it comes to these things. So, I mean, everyone needs feedback, right? Whether it's
Yeah.
good, bad, or ugly. And then if people want to find out more about your product, I assume your extension, I assume it's there on your website.
And also, my YouTube channel has just like 3 videos right now. I'm not very prolific, but it's got that story I told you. It's about
Yes.
like no work and then a lot of work later.
Mhm,
That's
mhm.
like shown on the timeline,
Oh,
in
cool.
that video, so you can like see the real, like fake student names, but very real work exam or
Mhm,
lack of work
mhm.
examples, as the case may be. Yeah, so a couple of walkthroughs to show you how it works and what it can offer. Like one thing that is in that video that I didn't mention has been really useful for one of our science teachers in group work. Then it
Oh.
shows you anytime more than one person worked on a document. It might be that people were supposed to work on it. It might be that some of them weren't assigned to it. So then you got a
Mm,
different thing to worry about. But it shows you the percentage of editing or the percentage of characters, either one, the editing time or characters added
mhm.
by every participant broken down, so that
Wow.
you can see, was it balanced? Was there an obvious
Mhm,
imbalance? And then
mhm.
you can find out, do I need to look into something? What was it? So if people are complaining, this teacher, mentions to me on occasion that, the I did all the work person, maybe they didn't do all the work, or
Yep.
sometimes the story that it tells is a good one. Yeah,
Right.
but it's just really nice to get another perspective when you've got all these kids pointing at each other and saying different things.
I'm telling you, it's a powerful tool, and I would recommend it to anybody. Anyone who has a Google Classroom should be checking this thing out.
Yeah, and I forgot to mention that fairly recently we made it so that it's free for any teacher to look at a single student at a time. Whether because we had like during the peak of the first wave, then
Mhm,
it was free for any closed school. But right
mhm.
now schools are like opening and closing, and you never
Sure.
can tell what. But now it's anywhere, any circumstances, free, one student at a time.
I see. So you don't see the whole class, you would have the list there, and then you just see what they do, or you just pick
Right.
the
So
kids from the
if you
drop
click,
down, or
yeah, if you click to see the breakdown, you'd see the one student's participation, but not the whole class. But yeah, it shows. You
I
just
see.
select the one student, then that one student shows up in the timeline.
Gotcha. That's fantastic that you're allowing us to have that access as well. So I
Sure. Yeah.
appreciate that, Eric. And
Mhm.
I know that people are going to want to check it out. And so they need to head over to classworkzoom.com
Yeah.
and have a look at that and get in
Mhm.
touch with you and find out more about it. And
Yeah.
I mean, I know that as we continue to be in hybrid or blended or whatever
Mhm.
flip classroom sort of situations that we're in, that these kinds of tools are going to become more and more valuable. And
Yeah.
so I really appreciate all the hard work you've put into that. And
Oh, I
so,
appreciate that.
Eric, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate you
Yeah.
taking some time tonight and
Yeah.
chatting with me. And I know that folks are going to want to find out more about that. So I'm sure they'll get in touch with you. So I'm going to make sure to put everything on the show notes so that
Perfect.
they can get in touch with you. But thank you so much, Eric. It's been such such a pleasure having you here.
Yeah, it's been great.
I hope you enjoyed that episode of Designcast. I'm Jason, your host, and I produced and created this podcast. If you have any input, I would love to hear from you, and I look forward to seeing you again really soon.